It's truly an honor to welcome you to this very important and timely conversation on how regenerative school meals can lead to wider systemic transformation in Southeast Asia. I extend our deepest gratitude to the Philanthropy Asia Alliance team for providing this platform to host this discussion. I would also like to thank our co-host, the Novo Nordisk Foundation, a close partner of the Rockefeller Foundation. A special shout out to my friend Daniel, who's played such a pivotal role in shaping this session and the work. We're also grateful to Monica Sharma, head of the India office at NNF, who will moderate our panel later today. We're honored to have with us Fero Ferzika, Special Advisor to the Coordinating Minister for Human Development and Culture of the Republic of Indonesia, for joining us today and for his steadfast leadership. Thank you so much, Fero, for getting all the energy that you get onto the table. We also have with us Dr. Sharika Yunus Khan, Head of Nutrition and School Meals Unit at the World Food Programme. Your partnership is essential as we scale programs that nourish both body and mind. I would also like to welcome Dr. Roland Kupka, Regional Advisor on Nutrition UNICEF, for lending your expertise to this dialogue. My sincere appreciation to my colleague Mehrdad Ehsani, Vice President for Food Initiative at the Rockefeller Foundation. Your leadership at the Foundation is helping to chart a course towards regenerative, equitable food systems globally. Thank you, Mehrdad, for everything that you do. And finally, a huge thank you to all the attendees in the room. Your commitment will drive the change we seek. Ladies and gentlemen, regenerative school meal programs go beyond simply feeding children. They redesign the entire food chain, change lives, and expand opportunity. Providing children with a nutritious meal at school generates multiple benefits, cutting across the traditional policy silos, separating food security, education, health, and social protection. It enhances nutrition, increases school enrollment, and improves learning, alleviates poverty, and provides vulnerable households with a safety net. Governments across the world increasingly recognize the benefits of school feeding. Many have adopted bold strategies for expanding access, like Indonesia and India. School feeding programs have a proven track record in accelerating progress towards a broad spectrum of sustainable development goals. The current reach and quality of school meal programs is most limited in the countries where the need is most urgent and the impact could be the greatest. Based on a report by the Sustainable Financing Initiative for School Health and Nutrition, supported by the Rockefeller Foundation, current coverage rates are just 18% in low-income countries and 39% in lower middle-income countries. Even these figures understate the scale of the deficit. Much of what is counted as coverage comprises intermittent, poor-quality meals. Children in LICs and LMICs are at the epicenter of the SDG delivery gaps. They account for a large and rising share of childhood hunger and extreme poverty, with adverse consequences for education, health, and equity. Expanded access to high-quality school meal programs could transform this picture, improving millions of lives. Now let's look at the regenerative aspect of school meals. The supply chains linking schools to farmers create wider opportunities. Sustainable intercropping systems, regenerative agriculture, and the planting of fruit trees can have the twin effect of reducing the carbon intensity of agricultural production and supporting livelihoods. Growing food closer to schools can also reduce the carbon emissions associated with transport, especially for long-distance food trade. Procurement for school meals can support more resilient rural livelihoods, create markets for drought-resistant seeds, and enhance food security by increasing access to biofortified foods. Governments can use public procurement budgets to create incentives for low-carbon, regenerative farming. The Rockefeller Foundation is committed to helping countries transform their school meal programs so they reach more learners, support local farmers, and increase demand for regenerative agriculture. As part of the 2025 Nutrition for Growth Summit hosted by the French Ministry for Europe and Foreign Affairs, the Rockefeller Foundation last month announced a new $100 million commitment to address rising global nutrition insecurity by supporting more than a dozen countries' efforts to expand and further develop their school meals program. A partner of the School Meals Coalition, the Rockefeller Foundation, will collaborate with others, including Novo Nordisk Foundation and the UN World Food Programme, to help strengthen the resilience of country food systems, improve the nutritional quality of school meals, mobilize finance, and help design procurement standards that incentivize investment in locally and regeneratively sourced foods. Over the next hour, we will delve deeper into Asia-specific examples and strategies that illustrate how regenerative school meals can spark transformation well beyond the lunch table. Regenerative school meals pay for themselves. Yes, they do pay for themselves. We'll hear more about that. Nourishing children, improving education, supporting farmers, and healing the planet. One plate, countless returns for people, communities, and our shared future. Indeed, one of the best investments to make. Does everybody agree with me? I really hope that you find the discussion today meaningful, and we're hoping that we can find more alliances and partners to work together. With that, let me now invite Dr. Roland Kupka to take us deeper into the conversation on the transformative power of the Regenerative School Meal Program. Roland is UNICEF's Regional Nutrition Advisor for East Asia and Pacific. With over 20 years of experience leading initiatives across Asia and Africa, he has been a driving force behind evidence-based solutions that improve child nutrition and development at scale. Please join me in welcoming Roland to the stage. Thank you, Roland.
Good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be part of this panel, to be able to build on some of the points that have been raised already, and also to be able to build on some of the themes that I feel were really becoming clear in the plenary yesterday. And those themes are on food, nutrition, and children, and how those themes are key to priming Asia for good. Today, I will be talking about school meals in Southeast Asia. And one of the reasons why it's important to talk about school meals is that malnutrition remains a common problem among school-age children in this part of the world. Here I'm showing some data from the Global Health Observatory that shows the prevalence of thinness as well as overweight among children between the ages of 5 to 19 years old. What we see in the orange bars is that overweight is becoming very, very prevalent in this part of the world. And the blue bars show that in many countries, for instance in Timor-Leste, some 17% of children are suffering from thinness. Now, why are forms of malnutrition such as thinness important? Well, they're related to poor cognitive development and learning, to increased risk of illnesses and infection, to delayed physical development, and then later in life also reduced productivity and lifetime earnings. The problem of overweight and obesity is then very much related also to non-communicable diseases in later life. So it's really important to address these forms of malnutrition among school-age children, and at UNICEF, addressing these forms is therefore part of our global nutrition strategy. And we've also issued specific guidance on this age group that I'm showing here, and that covers the 5 areas that are shown there. You see that the first area, and a really, really important area, is around the importance of offering nutritious foods in schools as well as outside of schools. But we don't want to limit ourselves to that. We also want to address food environments in a larger sense, for instance, to make sure that unhealthy foods are not being marketed inside of schools. Also to use platforms that exist to make available interventions such as micronutrient supplements and deworming. And then to also help our school children to become more nutrition literate through nutrition education as well as social and behavior change. Now, we've already heard what the potential of school meal programs is, and I think one real potential is to transform food systems, To me, this is such an important agenda. We need to transform these systems to support human health as well as planetary health, and we can use school meals because they are not only the biggest social protection system in many countries, but they are also account for up to 70% of public food procurement. The benefits of school meals are also very specific. They touch on areas such as improving health and diet quality. We also know, based on the data here, that the School Meals Impact Accelerator put together, that it can help lower dropouts, it can improve attendance. It also, as we've heard already, can provide benefit to smallholders' incomes. It can stimulate local economies, and if well designed, can have clear climate benefits as well as gender benefits. So how are we doing with regard to school meals worldwide? Here is the latest global map that I could find on this topic. What we see here is that countries that are shown in dark blue have more than 5 million children receiving school meals. The lighter blue is our countries where 1 to 5 million children receive school meals. What we see is that overall some 418 million children are receiving school meals every day. What is remarkable about this is that this figure shows a clear rebound from the COVID times when these programs were really suffering. That is, this data represents 30 million children more receiving school meals than during the times of COVID. Also, what we see, and those are the green bars, is that this region, South Asia, East Asia, and Pacific, are really forerunners and are accounting for a large part of the global total. Now, colleagues from the Global Child Nutrition Foundation also then looked at some of the data from this region in some greater detail. So we see that some 34% of primary school children benefit from these programs. That coverage decreases when we then look at secondary school children, where it is only some 13%. We see that 79% of countries in South Asia, East Asia, and the Pacific have a national school feeding policies that in aggregate some $14.5 billion were allocated to support these programs. And at the bottom of the slide, you also see that oftentimes these programs are linked to food and nutrition or health education, whereas some more work needs to be done to have clear nutritional requirements for food baskets that are offered. Now, one major supporter of school meal programs worldwide is the School Meals Coalition. It's a coalition between private and public sector partners that aims to ensure that every child receives a healthy and a nutritious meal in school by the year 2030. More than 100 member countries are part of this effort, and more than 140 partners as well. So this shows a great commitment really by many partners and governments, and another sign of commitment to the agenda of school meals, as well as offering other interventions at the level of schools, is the ASEAN School Nutrition Package that I'm showing here. That is the minimum standards and guidelines for this package. This is a document that the ASEAN member states endorsed last year. This is a document that's been endorsed by all the ministers of health from the ASEAN member states. And that document spells out 10 minimum standards for a school nutrition package, as well as several standards with regard to school meals. Now, we couldn't talk about government commitment in such a session without mentioning the great commitment that the government of Indonesia is showing, and I understand we'll have the privilege to learn more about this in a little bit, in the form of the Indonesia Free Nutritious Meals program, which is one of the, as I understand, presidential priority quick win interventions, and that aims to reach some 83 million school-age children, but not only that, but also vulnerable pregnant women, as well as children under the age of 5, to fight malnutrition among these groups. The program aims to leverage some $10 million annually and aims to create some 30,000 school-based kitchens by the year 2027. Now, as UNICEF, we are privileged to support this program. We support the program with the development of technical guidance, with evidence generation, and we've been particularly privileged to be able to contribute to the design of centers of excellence that were launched earlier this year, which is a network of local institutions that tries to build the capacities, the research capacity, technical assistance, to ensure a high-quality implementation of the program. Now, my last point is related to financing, and I heard that this has been referred to already. I think we would all agree that these programs need to first and foremost be funded by governments and domestic resources, and this is also what is indeed happening in all the countries that implement these programs. However, I do think that there is still a scope for innovative finance to further help with the quality and the scale of these programs, and I see specific opportunities to further leverage, for instance, climate finance for these types of programs, to see whether taxes such as on sugar-sweetened beverages can be leveraged, the income to support these programs, to work better with multilateral development banks, and also to draw on blended finance to take these programs to the next scale. So let me really then finish my presentation by really reinforcing the potential of school meal programs for health-related outcomes, for nutrition, poverty reduction, as well as education. Also that these programs can be vastly cost-effective. And I'm sure that we'll get a lot more information then from the exciting panel speakers that will join us here on stage. So with that, let me thank you again for letting me be part of this session. And with that, I'll turn it over to Monica, who will be serving as the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, Dipali, for your kind remarks and introducing the concept of regenerative school meals. And thank you, Roland, for the very informative presentation. I think this is the perfect segue to the part 2 of the session. Hello, everyone. I am so happy to be here today. I want to start by saying that I want to really thank you all for showing interest in this session and choosing to be here. Thank you to the organizers of the event. I am Monica Sharma. I lead the India office of the Novo Nordisk Foundation. Our headquarters are in Copenhagen, Denmark. We are an old and at the same time a young organization. What makes us old is our history of working in Denmark for the last 100 years. And what makes us young is that we started in India just 2 years. And most importantly, while spreading our wings globally, our focus remained the same: human and planetary health. The world is far from achieving zero hunger by 2030. Millions, including nearly 300 million school children, are malnourished, affecting their health, learning, and future prospects. School meal programs offer a powerful solution. In the rapidly evolving agriculture landscape, there is increasing recognition of the deep connection between how food is grown and its impact on both human and planetary health. I'm so pleased to be moderating this very important panel today, where the focus of the discussion will be on the strategic next steps for scaling regenerative school meal programs across Southeast Asia. With this background, I would like to call our esteemed panelists on stage. Ferro Ferresca, Special Advisor to the Coordinating Minister for Human Development and Culture of the Republic of Indonesia. Fero was earlier with Pejar Foundation. Thank you, Fero. Mehdad Ehsani, Vice President, Food Initiative, the Rockefeller Foundation. Mehdad is a seasoned economic development expert with a deep understanding of ecosystem approaches in sector development. Thank you, Mehdad. Dr. Sharika Yunus Khan, Head of Nutrition and School Meals Unit, World Food Programme. She is an expert in the subject. Thank you, Sharika. So we'll have the panel discussion followed by an opportunity to engage with the panelists through a question and answer session. To do so, please approach the microphone and kindly identify yourself, your organization, before you ask the question. Thank you. So welcome to the session, and thank you very much for coming all the way from Indonesia, Nairobi, and India to reiterate that how important this topic is for all of us. Today's discussion is to emphasize the critical role of partnerships and how funders can help overcome key barriers like policy limitations, infrastructure challenges, and limited funding. So let me start with you, Fero. Could you share some insights on how school meal programs are a powerful tool for nutrition and economic development? From your perspective, why is scaling regenerative school meal program critical for Southeast Asia?
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Monica, for inviting, and also for Rockefeller Foundation and also Novo Nordisk for inviting me to this wonderful session. So it's interesting because I come from a philanthropic background. Before, I was the CEO of Pija Foundation, and now I'm entrusted as the advisor to the Coordinating Ministry of Human Development. So a little bit of context. So our coordinating ministry coordinates 8 ministries and 10 government agencies, everything related to human development. And I think I will answer it from both sides of the world. So I think this is very, very important, especially on how we look at nutrition as the cornerstone of human development. So before we talk about innovation, before we talk about curriculum, before we talk about school, we have to talk about making sure that every kid is not going to school hungry, right? And the grand strategy of our school meal program, or we call it the MBG, Free Nutritious Meal Program, is basically not only feeding the kids in the school, but also basically changing the system of the food system in the entirely. And why it's important is because we look at it not only as the way for us to fulfill the right of the children, but also to basically transform the economic impact to the people around the school. What we mean by that is, if we look at the whole value chain, it starts with the with the farming, with the agricultures. And the strategy of a free nutritious meal program is the local sourcing. So we want the economy to be circulating locally, and we want the sourcing to be planted and grown locally. And we want the kitchen also to empower and employ the local people. So that's the first part of the equations. And the second part of the equation is the logistics. So currently the beneficiaries are the school, from the elementary school, senior high school, and also junior high school. But now we are expanding that not only to the school, but also to the pregnant mothers and also breastfeeding mothers. The reason why is because currently in Indonesia, stunting is a very acute and very critical problem. Our stunting rate previously, before we took an office, is at 21.5%. So means that 1 out of 5 children in Indonesia are stunted. But now we drop it down to 19.8. but we want to drive it down even further to below 10% in single digit. So hopefully we can achieve that. So what we learn from stunting is it's not only at the school age, but also at the first 1,000 days of the living babies. And also not only that, but also from the breastfeeding and also from the pregnant mother. So it is very important for the free nutritious meal program to feed the mother and also breastfeeding mothers. So that is how we look at the free nutritious meal program. That's why we are not only limiting this only to school, but also to the pregnant mother and also breastfeeding mother, because the life starts there. So it is very important to scale it out, and hopefully the model that we did in Indonesia can be replicated in other part of the world, especially in the emerging countries.
Yeah, this is remarkable. Thank you so much, Ferro. I think this was a very good insight. So moving to you, Mehrad, what do you think about this?
Well, first of all, I think we have to congratulate Indonesia. The ambition to expand to 83 million children and vulnerable people, it's really visionary. And we are all stakeholders in Indonesia's success, because as Indonesia plows ahead, I think it will chart a course for others also to follow. Our speakers have already made the case quite strongly. One dimension that perhaps ministers of finance will better understand, because they look at economic returns, is while a country like Singapore is doing very well, according to the Human Capital Index, children born in Singapore develop 88% of their human capital potential. For this region, their average is not so good. It's about 59%. So there's a lot of room to grow as far as better nutrition and cognitive and physical development of children. We know that that also has greater education outcomes. So there is actually an economic development incentive for this. It's an investment, not just a reoccurring expense.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think this was very comprehensive. Thank you so much. Maybe now I can move to you, Sharika. So as we understand that India's school meals program is the largest in the world, could you share with us what is it and how it works in a country like India?
Thanks for the question, Monica. So indeed, India's school meals program is the largest in the world. It's a program which is universal. It's a program which is fully owned by the government, and on any average day reaches about 100 million children across the country. In terms of how the program is implemented, it's implemented on the principles of cooperative federalism, where it's the role of the national government to set the food and nutrition norms, to set the guidelines basis which the program will be implemented. And then it's the state governments who then implement the program across the country. So it's basically implemented on the principles of cooperative federalism. The model that India has adopted for implementation is a bit of a hybrid model, but overwhelmingly, most of the schools across the country, most of the government and government-aided schools across the country have a kitchen which is built in the schools where the meals are cooked and then supplied to the kids. However, for the urban part of the country, there are these big industrial-style kitchens where the meals are cooked and then transported to the school children. The scheme covers children between the ages of 6 to 14 years, so not really the age group that the Indonesian government is looking to cover. And that translates into children studying between grades 1 to 8th. So,
yeah, this is incredible. I'm sure managing these big programs. Thank you, Sharika. So, Ferro, you are very close to government now, and maybe it'll be wise to ask you, how is the government working with NGOs and the private sector partners to improve and scale school meal programs in Indonesia? And maybe what are some key success stories or maybe challenges that you would like to share with us today?
Yeah. So yeah, in fact, I'm not only close with the government, I am in the government. So I can tell you from
you sit so close that you can share with us like the insights.
I can tell you from the inside how we look at it.
Yeah.
So the success of a free nutritious meal program, it depends on the public and private partnerships. And we as a country cannot do it alone. We have finite, limited budget as well. And of course, everybody have to jump in on the board and then all hand on deck. So how we look at it is that this is the first time we run a free nutritious meal program. This is the first time ever we try to feed school children, but at the same time, pregnant mother and also breastfeeding mother. So if we honestly say we don't know what's going to work, so means that learning, constant experimentation, constant data gathering, and constant adjustment is very, very important. And this is where the philanthropy can come in. And the private sector and philanthropy is expected to help us to basically learn what is the best approach for the program. But Indonesia is quite diverse. So as a context, Indonesia has more than 30 provinces, 17,000 islands. This is quite diverse, and we have more than 400 tribes and 400 ethnicity. So this is quite diverse. So Indonesia is heterogeneous, means that there is no one single silver bullet approach that works for all. So means that the approach in the island of Sumatra will be different with the island in Java, with the different in Borneo, we're gonna be different with Celebes, and so other part of the Indonesia. So means that experimentation needs to be configured in a way that is fitting to the local context. And when it comes to experimentation, we have to look at the value chain from first the sourcing. So means that what are the experimentation model for the agriculture, and also what are the model for the sourcing, what are the model for the kitchen, and also for the distribution. Because for instance, in Java is very dense population. So infrastructure is good, so means that the distribution using car, using truck is very easy. But if you look at areas like Celebes or areas like Papua where roads are not that yet there, so there gonna be another way to distribute. And also when it comes to school, so every school, the distance between one school to another in Java is only, let's say, 5 kilometers, 3 kilometers. But in Papua, between one school to another, maybe 20, 30 kilometers. So if you want to distribute the school meal, then school A, school B, the distance is 40 kilometers. What is the best model for the kitchen? And this is where the government, needs help from the philanthropy to pilot, experiment, and help us learn. And then we can partner to basically scale it out, because we need, as a government, we need to work on the model that already been proven, and then the philanthropy and also private sector can come to de-risking the approach. So that's how we see it. But not only that, when it comes to free nutritious meal, we want this to be a closed-loop ecosystem of business in a local context. So we want the private sector and philanthropy to spearhead more and more local entrepreneurs to be participating in the program. That's how we think of how we can scale it.
Yeah, I must say, I really admire the vision of starting early. I think it's been, kind of emphasized in every session that how the first 1,000 days of a child life, you consider it very important. So yeah, and also the hybrid models that you follow to kind of cater to the different style of, your operations in the country. This is amazing. So now, Mehrdad, looking at you, you come from a philanthropic organization. So would be good to know, how do you think about what philanthropies as an international philanthropy like Rockefeller Foundation play in fostering multi-sectoral collaborations for school meals?
So I think the first thing is that it's become clear that donor-funded school meals are not sustainable. So we have to look towards models of national ownership, like the way Indonesia is driving the way forward with domestic finance. And so that has implications. School meals are not inexpensive. It's a massive investment. So in order to make it a worthwhile investment, we have to design it in a way that gets multi-sectoral outcomes to improve the value proposition. In the case of Indonesia, this is a presidential initiative, but in other countries, sometimes it's a minister of education that doesn't have the convening power, doesn't have the ability to reach the center of government. And so I think arming those sort of ministries with the evidence, with the power to advocate, with the ability to coordinate with other ministries so that everybody gets an opportunity to get some of the outcomes that are important to their sector. So I think it's important. A case in point is, for example, for finance. Children may take 8 to 12 years to become economically active. That's very patient capital. So if you bundle it, though, with, say, investments then in agriculture, which have a much faster return on investment, then it becomes more palatable as a financial instrument. So in effect, school meals need agriculture, as one point, to become viable sources for financing. So that's just an element of the sorts of collaborations that are needed to unlock this higher value proposition for school meals.
So, yeah, it looks like collaboration and working together is the key. So, we all know that scaling these programs require overcoming several barriers. For example, policy constraints, infrastructure limitations, and funding shortages. So, which of these challenges do you see as the most urgent, and how should stakeholders address them? This is a question for all. So, do you want to start, Farah? Okay.
Actually, the challenges in India's context, I wouldn't even probably call them challenges, but where there would be a bit of scope for improvement would be around the infrastructures there, the financing is there. But the scheme is actually has a nutritional objective, but there is very limited focus on the nutritional objective. The scheme only covers children, and I know that this is something that the Rockefeller Foundation has been really, really interested in, as to how do we enhance the coverage of the scheme? How can we get it beyond children studying between grades 1 to 8 and extend it to secondary and senior secondary classes? So that's an area where definitely the scheme could be improved more. The other is how could the schemes be made more nutritious and more diverse? That's an area that I see for improvement. And probably last but not the least is there is financing and there are these cost norms that the scheme has in terms of per child, per day sort of cost norms. And over the past couple of months, there's been an increase in that, but it is still on the lower side to be able to provide a full, wholesome, nutritious meal. So I would sort of probably talk about the challenges from that perspective.
Yeah, well said. So, yeah, Pharaoh.
To add, I think the most important part is data. Data, because when it comes to nutrition, this is a problem, but also this is a solvable problem. So what we see is that in Indonesia, we have currently a lot of ministries. Let's say the Ministry of Health. They already done some research about what nutrition children should have, what nutrition the mother should consume when they are pregnant, when they are breastfeeding. But at the same time, the Ministry of Agriculture, they haven't, consumed the same data, so they don't signal the data to the farmer about what they need to plant. And on the other hand, the other ministry also, the ministry, let's say education, they have the distribution of where the schools are, the age, and also the height and everything. They don't talk to each other. Yeah. So the key here is, one, is data. Secondly, is the coordination. Because that's why in Indonesia we have 6 coordinating ministry, because Indonesia is so diverse and it's so broad, and every ministry held their own asset, which is data. So the coordinating ministry's job is basically to make sure everything is connected to a hub, so that we can see from the helicopter view where are the school, where are the children, what nutrition they need, and more importantly, there has to be signaling from the market. We have to start from the end. So what the children needs to be signaled back to the agriculture. So let's say in Java, it's easy to grow rice, but in Papua, it's not really, in Celebes, it's not really. So in Papua, typically people eat sagu, for instance, right? But we need to make sure we know what nutrition the kids in Papua need, so that we can signal to the farmer what should they plant. And if we can have that signaling and also the logistic going from the upstream to the downstream, I think that will work beautifully to increase the nutrition of the children in Indonesia. And a free nutritious meal is basically a program to not only to feed, but also to test out the logistic, the value chain, and also the signaling of the market. So this is beyond just giving meal to the children. This is, changing the food system entirely.
I'm so glad you got data and coordination in the discussion, because this is the key. No matter how much we partner, how much funding we bring into the picture, till we bring the right data, right analysis is something that is a mandatory step. So would you like to have your comments from the part of the world you come from?
Well, I think you can see that it's a very enlightened vision in Indonesia, that they're taking an evidence-based approach to optimize for cost, nutrition, locally grown food, and so forth. So that's a great mark. But I would say that not all countries are thinking from that platform. Some countries that we talk to, the first thing they think about is finance, which is understandable. Many countries now are spending more servicing their debts than they spend on social programs. So that is a real situation that has to be addressed. But I think the framing that Pharaoh mentioned is a very enlightened one. In some cases, we're working with one government that just recently committed to universal school meals. They have to build a legal and policy framework from scratch. They have to build systems from scratch. So I think there's no one size fits all. You have to kind of, from the way we approach it, we try to accompany governments based on their needs and the priorities that they set.
Yeah, perfect. So Pharaoh, I'm sure there is more that can be done on the top of what the government is currently doing. So what are the biggest policy roadblocks in expanding these school meal programs in Indonesia, and what reforms could make the biggest impact?
Yeah, I think number one is I will not say roadblock, but the big rock that we have to move is the data. Because right now, the signal is disconnected between one value chain to another value chain. Without a connected signal, then we cannot build a robust system. So I think number one is the data. In order to solve that, we have to look at the free nutritious meal from three main value chain. Number one, from the upstream, is the agriculture. So every part of Indonesia have a different characteristic of soil, and it grows different characteristic of food and also plants. So we need to make sure the intake of carbohydrate can be fulfilled, the protein and so on. And that is the first part. But more importantly is we need to make sure that we have to know about the data of the current farmers in the agriculture region in that area. Because right now, most of Indonesian farmers are above 55 or 50 years old. Means that in the next 10 years, they will be 60 and they will be inactive. And currently, the younger generation are not interested to go to the agriculture sector. So there is also a problem that we need to take care of, because if we want to produce the yield, we need to make sure how many farmers do we have. If there is a gap, what kind of solution can we fill the gap, whether it's technology or whether it's creating a new farmer. Secondly, the second part of the value chain is the kitchen. So we need to make sure the kitchen is standardized, but standardized in the sense that people can afford it and people can basically be part of it. So with the kitchen, basically what we are trying to do is we are trying to involve the local entrepreneurs to create their kitchen and sourcing from the local, and they can basically invoice the government, and basically they can get their revenue out of it. So the second part of the value chain is the kitchen, and in order to make the kitchen more efficient, we have to pilot a lot of models, because the culture aspect on that is very important. For instance, in Java, there is a culture of PKK, or mothers group, basically. So mothers group, they group every day when the husband is going to the work, and then they have nothing to do and they have idle capacity. So that are the idle capacity that we can leverage. Different with the Jakarta. In Jakarta, well, everybody is struggling to get a living, so it's more going to be a employment model and something like that. So there has to be a different model to be tested, and there is no one single answer for everything. And the third part of the equation is the value chain. Remember, we have three targets. One is the school, second is the pregnant mothers, the third one is the breastfeeding mother. If you want to feed the school children, is very easy, because you go to school, you give the food, done. But if you want to feed the breastfeeding mother and pregnant mother, where do you go? You cannot knock door to door, right? So it means that you have to go door to door, as well as going to the clinic, as well as going to the local healthcare center, so that we can pick the mother where they are. So again, we don't have the answer, the perfect answer right now, but the more important thing is constant experimentation and data. And that data will be very useful for us to define and refine our approach.
Yeah, I think it's just like how one step is linked to the another step, and how whole of this has to work in collaboration, and also kind of the awareness what we are doing and why we are doing. Like, for instance, you said the farmers and the mothers, so it just reflects that it has to be a well-coordinated and connected, whatever we try to achieve out of these models. So, yeah, thank you. So, Sharika, what are the biggest challenges you see when it comes to implementing national school meal programs in India? And how does World Food Program help resolve the same issue?
Thanks. Monica, I guess in the previous part, I spoke a bit about the challenges, so I wouldn't sort of belabor that point. But how is it that the World Food Program helps in resolving some of those challenges? So the World Food Program actually works very differently in India as compared to the rest of the countries where we are present. We don't do any food aid in India because the Indian government is fully capable of feeding its own population. But what we do is we provide technical assistance to the government, and with specific focus to India's school meal program, there's a lot of policy advocacy work that we do. We undertake a lot of studies, like a recent study that we've undertaken is mapping the school meals program across the country and then identifying what the gaps are and how they can be improved. The third strategy that we use a lot in our work in India is what we call a pilot to scale model. So we pick up interventions that have been proven successful in other parts of the world. We pilot it at scalable geography in the country, and once we have created the evidence around it, we then take it back to the government for mainstreaming in its policies and programs. A recent piece of work in this space has been the work on the mainstreaming of fortified rice. We did a couple of pilots in the country. It's a large country, so one pilot doesn't suffice. It needed at least 2 to 3 pilots for us to make the case to the government. But today, as we speak, fortified rice is fully mainstreamed across all the 3 food-based safety nets in the country and in the PM Poshan or India School Meals program. So those are the different ways in which we support the school meals program in the country.
Yeah, I think, Sharika, there is more that maybe I want to ask you, but I'll come back to you on this maybe after I have just one question, because I know about this program a bit, and I'm sure that will be useful for our audience to know more about it. So, Mehrad, many funders are interested in systemic change rather than short-term fixes. What are some of the high-impact funding strategies that can drive the sustainable expansion of school meal programs?
So, first of all, we shouldn't sideline short-term fixes because there is a role for humanitarian aid, right? So that has its own space. But we obviously want to see communities evolve beyond that, right? State of desperation and countries to become, self-sufficient. So, and that ultimately, as I mentioned, is about national ownership. It's about domestic finance. So the question is, what's the pathway there? And how can we be catalytic as philanthropies? Now, Roland mentioned that, there's a 418 million children covered annually on school meals. That costs about $50 billion. So there's very limited what we can do as philanthropies paying for food, right? We don't have the resources to reach the next 300 million children in primary schools alone, let alone now secondary schools or other age groups. So as philanthropies, we just don't have that capacity. But what we can do is we can, first of all, help countries and governments to understand the value proposition for school meals if they design it well, right? We can help them access finance, whether it's looking at fiscal space and how to move money around to optimize social outcomes, whether it's about expanding fiscal space. Roland mentioned soft earmark taxation, sin taxes, health promotion taxes, whether it's about accessing highly concessional finance from MDBs. Even now we're looking at sovereign bonds for multi-sectoral school meals. So I think there's lots of opportunities there to help governments think through. There's opportunities around delivery, how to optimize, reduce leakage, look at efficient systems, just like how Indonesia's looking at things. So what I would say is if there were funders that were interested, we are working towards, with a number of other partners, to kind of create a global school meals accelerator. And I'm cautiously optimistic it will be launched at the end of this year, and probably it will have something around a minimum of $75 million. If other funders come in, you get great leverage. You're buying into capacity that will be institutionalized to accompany governments. And as I said, this will be catalytic because it's looking at a sustainable outcome where we can walk away and governments can step up and take on a pathway of owning these school meals and paying for them. So to me, that is a good value proposition.
Yeah, I think, Mehrad, one point that you have raised, like how philanthropists sometimes act as catalysts. This is so important, that how sometimes this is just a little trigger, a little attention of the government that is required, and which brings big changes. Yeah. So Sharika, I'm now back with the question that can bring more information out of the program. So I know that Novo Nordisk Foundation and World Food Programme are working together on a joint program for India. So could you please share with us what is this program about and what is the element of this brand new partnership?
Thanks again, Monica. So the World Food Programme as well as the Novo Nordisk Foundation have collaborated for a joint program in India. It's aligned to the Government of India's priorities. The focus is largely to bring nutrition-centered approaches into the implementation of the 3 food-based safety nets that we have in the country, with a special focus being on India's school meals program. The key elements of the partnership are around mainstreaming millets in the school meals program. India's school meals program till now is largely either rice-based or wheat-based. But if we look at it from this entire prism of regenerative agriculture, millet mainstreaming is something that would be extremely valuable. And together with Novo Nordisk Foundation, we also would like to work on, try and see what more can be done in the space of climate adaptive agriculture and how commodities can be sourced through that particular strategy for the safety nets and in particular for the school meals program.
Yeah, thank you. So I think the engagement with the farmers, the local produce, and all of this is the key for this program. So thank you, Sharika. So maybe Pharaoh and Mehdad, looking at you from a government and a philanthropic perspective, if you had one recommendation or maybe just one call to action for funders, governments, or NGOs to accelerate school meal expansion in Southeast Asia, what would it be?
I think right now, all government that wants to do a free nutrition meal program needs to constantly learn, experiment, and also pilot new approaches. So it's very important to establish some kind of a knowledge hub, knowledge exchange platform where the policymakers between one country to another can learn from each other, can learn the model, also can learn about the value chain and supply chain, and how can they optimize things and share the data. And I think government in every country is hyper-local, but I think organization, philanthropy, and foundation like Novo Nordisk and also Rockefeller Foundation is very important as a global organization to facilitate this knowledge exchange between policymakers from other countries. The idea and the goal is to how can we make sure that the learning and also the learning from other country can be taken to another country, and also the best practices can be replicated. But more importantly is we have limited time to basically make this successful. For instance, Indonesia, currently we are in a demographic bonus. We are one of the youthful population in the world right now. But in 2034, we start aging. So it means that our window is only 9 years. So we have to make it. Otherwise, then after 2034, if we fail to feed children and also pregnant mother and breastfeeding mother with nutrition, then from 2034 to beyond, then every country, I think, will be in trouble. So it's now or never. And I think Novo Nordisk and also Rockefeller Foundation plays a very important role in that sense.
Yeah. Thank you, Feroz. So, Mehdad, maybe in 1 minute.
Well, that's a great vision. I can't top that. the learning platform is very key. And I say probably beyond the learning is maybe as a community, as ASEAN, to adopt a strategy to say, we know that human capital is the future of our economies. Let's invest, but in a wise way, that we will invest in healthy consumption patterns and reduce the burden on diet-related diseases that is rising. Let's invest in driving climate-resilient agriculture through this demand lever. Let's invest in better education outcomes. The multi-sectoral approach in a collaborative way with philanthropy, with the private sector, with government and all. I think that's a nice vision.
Yeah. So before I open the floor for questions, maybe just in quick 1 minute, how does success look like to you for like in the next 5 years? Mehrad, what do you think?
Well, I understand ASEAN is actually working on some sort of school meals policy, if I'm not mistaken. So I think we're already moving towards that direction, but it would be fantastic if the vision that Pharaoh shared, I think the learning platform and the commitment as a region to go forward together is an exciting one.
Brilliant. So Pharaoh?
I think success looks like when the free nutritious meal program become an economic system, not only become a food system as we know it today. What I mean by that is how can people not only see the free nutritious meal program only as a means to feed the children, pregnant mother and breastfeeding mother, but also they see this as a means to make a living so that it can sustain on its own in the long run.
Yeah, thank you. Sharika?
Success for the school meals program in India is a more diversified and a more nutritious meal on the plates of the school children, which hopefully then ensures that the demographic dividend that the country has yields results in the long term.
I like the optimism, so this is like a perfect way to move to the audience and we can take questions, maybe 3 questions. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Shirley Lu from ProVac International. We're focusing on alternative protein. My question, first of all, I would like to thank you, for this very meaningful and very informative panel. I really learned a lot, and I think it's a wonderful panel. Okay, my question is, I'd like to go back to the question on creating systemic change and or even financing a systemic change. Earlier in the beginning of the presentation, I think Dr. Kupa showed that every $1 invested in a school meal program generated $9 in returns. Would it be possible to look at the beneficiaries of the return? So then will that kind of provide guidelines on how to turn this from a philanthropy or public fundings campaign or programs to involve the beneficiaries or the industries to make it becomes not only the food systems but also the part of the economic system. My second question is, if you have fundings to expand the school meal program, can you share your thoughts or if there's any research learnings on trade-off between expansion in geography and going to cover the higher age school children? Thank you.
Pharaoh, would you like to take this question?
Yeah, so how we see I love the slide about $1 and $9 return because I think this is very resonant with us. The way we look at it is that this is a systemic return. What I mean by that is we see a free nutritious meal program as the investment for the future talent. So right now in Indonesia, the stunting rate is 19.8%. So almost 1 out of 5. Means that stunting is permanent. So if this kid is currently stunted, then the next 20 years, he or she will be part of the society, and he or she will not be a functioning member of the society. He or she cannot work, cannot learn very effectively, cannot be part of an economy that Indonesia wants to be. So it means that there are going to be a loss in the Indonesian economy. So how we see this free nutrition program is to safeguarding our future. So with the $1 every meal that we invested, we hope that these children will become healthy, will become clever, smart, and able to learn good in school so that they can be part of the working society. But in the long run, what we see is that they can grow Indonesia economy entirely. But in the short run, I think if we look at the hunger right now in Indonesia, hunger is the first step to another, illness and the losses from the economy, from the health insurance claim, national insurance claim, is going to be higher than the investment. So $9, we don't see this entirely as a return, but also as the avoidance of loss. And that is also very, very important for us as a country.
Yeah, thank you. So you had a question.
Hi, my name is Duke. I'm from the Mafalong Foundation. What's up, man? My question is more about how this meal is regenerative, which means that while we're spending to provide free meal to the kids and the mothers and the pregnant women, there are also communities that are involved. So I wanted to know, does the cost of providing the meal is relatively the same as the traditional way of procuring it, and how much money is actually being transferred into the community? Because if you're saying that you're provided over 90 million meals to the target group, then that means that you have to also be able to uplift a lot of people in the community. Do you have that figure? And also walk me through it seems that you do a lot of growing agriculture, but is there proteins involved in the meals, and where do you secure them? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. If there are more questions?
Okay, thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Amri from Edu Farmers International Foundation from Jakarta, Indonesia. I have two questions. One is for Mas Vero. So Mas Vero, I've been meeting with Prof. Dadan from the Badan Gizi Nasional to discuss about how this school meal program can also benefit the economy, because the government is also aiming to get the 8% growth of economy through, one of the ways is through school meal program. As the foundation that really focusing on the food security, which is we have the agriculture program in the upstream and also stunting prevention program in the downstream, do you have any framework for how society, community, maybe like economic development in the village can also benefit from the school meal program? For example, like farmers, smallholder can sell directly to the kitchen, or maybe the development of new local economy with the cooperative system. Do you have that kind of framework already in place? And if not, how can we as a philanthropy, nonprofit organization, and also other private sector can access it and also help to support the school meal program in Indonesia? And my second question is to Dr. Sharikwa. I think India has been doing this a lot, longer than Indonesia, and you have a lot more insight and experience. If there is one advice that you can give to Indonesia that has just started to do this free school meal program, what is it? Like, what do you want to give us as one advice so that we don't stray, like we keep to our mission and goal to feed the children and also to grow our economic development? Thank you.
Yeah. So I think first question was for you, Fero, then we can move on to you, Sharika.
Yeah, I think the first question and second question can be basically answered by one word: cooperatives. So in Indonesia, we have a scheme of a business, what we call the cooperative, not only businesses, but also cooperatives. So cooperative is basically a enterprise that which concept is to empower the local community and do a business in the sense that focusing on strengthening the members' well-being and also financial well-being, and the members is basically the local community itself. And currently the framework of a free nutrition meal is that we got to look at it from the big picture that in Indonesia, we just launched an initiative, what we call the cooperative red and white, merah putih, kooperasi merah putih. So the idea is the government wants to build 80,000 cooperatives across the nation to basically not only to empower the local economy, but also to support the free nutrition meal program. How it works is basically the cooperative can be the engine and the community to basically support the three value chain of the free nutritious meal program. The first one is from the agriculture. With the nutritious meal, with the cooperative, they are able to do some kind of a lending and borrowing so that the farmer can have a working capital to work first, and then they can supply the local kitchen. And also for the second part, the kitchen owner, they can also use the local cooperative as the vehicle for the business to create and open the kitchen and finance the kitchen. And more importantly is for the distribution, they also can be financed by the local cooperative. So cooperative is basically economic system and economic enterprise that is started in Indonesia since the very beginning. Indonesia have its independence in 1945, and cooperative has been used in a lot of villages. And currently, the government is planning to strengthen and professionalize the cooperative so that the good intention of the cooperative can really be translated into the real economic value. And school meal program or free nutritious meal program is just one of the use cases from many others. So I think that's how I will combine the first and second questions.
Yeah, thank you. Sharika, if you'd like to add.
Thanks a lot for the question. In terms of advice, I'm not really sure whether Indonesia needs any advice. They seem to be on a breakthrough journey themselves. But from what I know from the Indian context, the school meals program is a very contextually designed scheme. And therefore, it's important to keep context. It's laid a lot of emphasis on the involvement of the local communities. That's also probably something that Indonesia is already thinking about. And the third piece is that currently the dispensation wants a school meals program. But while you're implementing the school meals program, it's very important to generate the evidence of impact of such a school meals program, because tomorrow probably there may be a newer dispensation. You wouldn't want to land into a situation where all the hard work then gets scrapped back. And I'm saying that from experience because often governments do not necessarily see the value of social protection programs. And they'll see the value of it if there's evidence and hard numbers to talk about the value. And lastly, just to say that India does facilitate a lot of visits to the country to learn from its school meals program. And if you would ever want to come, I'm sure the government of India would be more than happy to.
Yeah. Thank you, Sharika. So maybe, there's one more question. One more. Okay, let's have two more questions then we wind up.
Hi, I'm Gauri Mirpuri, the founder of the Learning Farm, which is an organic farm in Cipanas, where we teach young farmers better agricultural practice. It's been going for 20 years. I'd love to talk to Feroz later about it. My question was actually a little bit similar to what Amri mentioned, which is with the small holders, micro holders, really pico holders holding farms, really small farms, they are so disorganized and so disjointed. So and how are you going to get the word out to that level? And the fact that you actually answered it by saying that the cooperatives will be re-strengthened, and that's very nice to hear, because I think in the 1980s, the cooperatives were the beating heart of a lot of the rural communities, and that went down over the last 20 years or so. So that's good to hear that. But my question remains, it's not a question, it's more like a request. Think about communication to the average farmer, and because a lot of them are thinking about how they could actually feed into the system and they don't have a clue. Thank you.
Thank you. So the final question. Here. Yeah. Could we have the mic, please?
Hello, I'm Shariha. I'm from Mission & Co. Private sector predominantly, but private sector with an impact lens. Super excited about the developments. I've been following the School Meals Coalition work as well, and love the kind of model there of how governments, member states are coming together in coalition with philanthropic organizations and those delivering services on the ground. One thing I have to say though, even with the School Meals Coalition, the private sector is not allowed in. And I know that there are reasons for that. Same with school meals programs around the world. But I think now in this age, we've really got to expand partnerships to really truly include the private sector. And I think there are ways we can do that, where you can still work with the private sector, but in a way that is perhaps moderated or done in partnership and leveraging the strengths the private sector brings into this space. Just wanted to hear from the panel some ideas. You've got good representation, I guess, from different organizations, private sector, also from the moderator, if you're able to respond in that way. How can we bring the private sector and their trillions into this space? This is really still something that's a big question for everybody. Thank you.
Yeah. So would you like to respond, Mehrad and Ferro?
So I agree that I think finding ways to leverage the capacity of the private sector is important, is critical. But we have to make sure that the private sector also works for the wider system and not so much for itself. So I have some empathy for the School Meals Coalition. I was working in a country where the government had passed legal notice for a sugar-sweetened beverage tax to pay for school meals. It was legal notice. A multinational corporation, food processor, came in to the top of the country, made a deal, and now that country is stuck. Millions of children are not getting school meals because they want to sell sugar. So you can understand these kind of implications. We see with climate-smart agriculture, the agenda was hijacked to make it very input-intensive so that private sector can sell inputs, right? So the question is, how do we get the best of the private sector? And I think that has to start with a conversation. It's going to need regulation. It needs to be transparent. It needs to be participatory. So this kind of coordination needs visibility, right? So that deals aren't done under the table where one element, in some countries, a very powerful element within a system is working for its own benefit rather than the wider system. So we have to build win-wins, and definitely we need the ingenuity, the finance, the passion, the drive of the private sector. So I don't want to at all sound anti-private sector, but we have to just do it with our eyes wide open.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's so inspiring to see how there is so much passion about this topic. But in the interest of time, maybe I have to conclude. And I would say that it's fair to conclude how the transformative potential of regenerative school meals programs, establishing how these initiatives can drive systemic changes across communities and the broader food systems while delivering positive impact on development. So I would say let's continue the dialogue and figure out the best ways to partner, share learnings, and get to action. So yeah, a big round of applause for all the three panelists. Thank you. Thank you.